What's up, my fellow unicorns? It's your boy Chris Casanova coming at you with some straight talk. Pronouns are they, them, or whatever. But remember, folks, respect people's pronouns and don't be a dick.
J-Mac, your other co-host, my pronouns are he and him, and we're going to let our guests, we're not having guests anymore for today because we're going to kind of expose what we're doing behind the scenes here to give you a little bit more information.
And also introduce our mascot, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah, there is a mascot. It came in a suitcase.
3 times.
On that note, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Mitchell. My pronouns are he, him, but when I'm in drag, I am Justine Diaz, and you can call me she or her. Pronouns are super important, and as Chris said, you definitely need to make sure that you respect people's pronouns. If you don't know, just ask.
Well, that's simple advice.
Yeah.
It's very simple. Who knew would pay attention to
I
that,
know.
right? And then, of course, we have this good-looking fellow hiding on the end.
I prefer to be behind the scenes.
And he's behind all of us.
I'm Rob Boulay, and I help out with the social media for the show.
So we thought it'd be really important for you to meet some of us, because that would be like a really good idea. And then we have some camera folks, but you can't see them. But they're talking to you. They're waving. Don't worry.
Sure.
Right. Hey, so let's talk a little bit about Pride. We are actually down at Pride Toronto.
Yes, we are.
Woo! Rainbow!
Yay.
And it's been a great experience so far.
Yeah, so far it sounds like it's been interesting.
Actually, you know, one of the best things, I'm really curious about makeup. What's the weirdest place you ever put makeup on?
Like I just said, the weirdest place I've ever put makeup on is on the trunk of my car, in a parking lot, at a farm, and it was amazing. Hence the sarcasm.
Right. So, why is Pride important? Like, why are we here? Why is it important to actually show up at Pride Toronto? Any one of you, jump at it.
Yeah, it's really important for representation. People need to have a safe space where they can be themselves and be with people, like-minded people and allies, and feel safe.
100%. Pride to me is important because it gives us the opportunity to express who we are as individuals. Not just gay or straight or trans or non-binary, just who we are as individuals. And I think that being able to express yourself in all the colors of the rainbow is super important. Also understanding the history of why we have Pride, the reason why we're here is super important. I think we've forgotten a little bit about that, and we've kind of stepped away a little bit. And I know that Pride Toronto and some other Pride organizations are slowly making their way back into more of a traditional Pride situation and what Pride actually represents. But we do this because we need our voices heard, and so I'm glad to be here and be one of those voices.
Yeah, for people who do not know, Pride started out in Stonewall, but with 2 trans women of color who threw a brick at police officers to protest police brutality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they were in a oppressed society, and they actually stood up and said that was enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is really important. We can't forget that.
Absolutely. I find, especially today with the younger generation, we're forgetting about our queer history. The really amazing thing that I've just recently heard, though, is that there's some schools now, I know there's a few states that are putting it through, and I don't know about Canada yet, but people are going to be starting to teach queer history in the school system, which I think is super important because our queer history has built our society. So not just the queer LGBTQ plus society, but our whole society.
Well, it raises a lot of questions. I mean, because the Ontario government actually did the rollback on sex ed and all those kind of things. And we have invited Doug Ford to participate, but we have not heard anything, unfortunately.
Surprise, surprise.
So, but one of the things, like Olivia, the executive director of Pride Toronto, made a point of saying that something that's good for the queer community is actually good for everybody.
100%.
So when we talk about equality, it's really important to recognize that it comes out of the queer community is that basis of equality that a lot of people seem to forget that history, and Olivia was very eloquent in the way she put that.
Girl, she was eloquent.
The other thing is that, with leaders of political parties, it's important for them to actually participate in Pride organizations.
100%.
We know there's definitely some challenges around that.
Just showing up is not enough.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we look to our allies to help spread the education and information to other people who are outside of the LGBTQ plus community. And if we don't have those people in power, such as political party leaders, people, CEOs of companies, a lot of famous people too, they've really jumped on the bandwagon and are like, listen, like, we support our LGBTQ plus community. And if we didn't have those people to help give us the voice that we have, then, we would still kind of be a few steps back. One of the major things that I think a lot of people forget too, there was a huge part in our community, in our society, in a time where we as gay men were dying and we didn't have a voice. And if it wasn't for the lesbians and the trans people speaking up for us and like helping us and giving us that voice, we wouldn't have the LGBTQ plus community that we have right now. So
That's a very valid point. That's very valid. I actually also find that, like many people will smile and wave in the parades and attend events, but when it's actually time to have a conversation around the LGBT or with the LGBT community, they just kind of, oh, wait a minute, we don't want that conversation. So it's kind of hypocritical when you watch some of these leaders show up and do this kind of thing. So hopefully over the next while that we'll be able to address stuff like that.
yes.
Well, not only that, there's also a lot of, I find, corporate companies or just companies in general who will try to profit off of the rainbow flag, the LGBTQ plus community, and try to sell us these things. Hey, this is for Pride, where we've released this for this, but then when you go and research the company, they won't turn around and put some of those profits towards helping the community.
Absolutely. And it's really important. I find the biggest thing right now is safety for our LGBTQ plus youth. And there are a lot of instances and incidents where we have seen people being attacked in public spaces, people being abused verbally and physically, and there are a lot of people out there that donate towards these charities. And I think that if people are going to stand up and say, oh, we support Pride, they need to support it in a whole and not just the tiny little pie.
Yeah. So is that, do you find that right now that it seems to be more visible, this hate and stuff that seems,
Big
because
time.
it just seems like, I think it's always been there personally.
Yeah, oh,
right?
it has been.
But it just seems for some reason over the last year or so, it's becoming very, very visible. Like
100%.
the incident on Church Street, they had the Hamilton Pride events that happened. Like, I mean, that's a prime example.
The biggest thing and the scariest thing right now is that the hate and the violence that is happening towards trans women of color. That in itself is completely appalling and disgusting.
I believe the numbers are like 368.
Yeah, so far this year. This year, it is only June, and that's this year that many trans women of color have been murdered. New York is just passed a law banning the gay fright or flight, whatever they call it there.
Oh, is it defense? They were
defense,
using,
yeah, the gay fright defense or whatever.
I thought he was hitting on
Yeah, exactly. So they've just banned that in New York City. But the fact that that still is a defense for people in this day and age is disgusting. I'm sorry, but like, human beings are human beings. If somebody has misled you, I understand you can be upset, but there's no need to resort to that kind of violence.
Rob, with the unions, like, I mean, you do a lot of work with unions and stuff. What's the role, and why is it so important for them to be involved in things like the LGBT and Pride? And
From my perspective,
I know you're not speaking for the president of the union.
yeah. From my perspective in the union stuff, it's all about the equality, right? Like everyone, like regardless of our orientation or our sexual preference, we're all people. We should all be treated equally. And the union, my experience has been that the unions do stand up for that, and that they provide us with that platform to make sure that other people are aware and we can publicly pronounce that and try and encourage more and more people to stand up for everyone. Then that's what we need right now, with everyone feeling that it's okay to be violent against people in the LGBT community. We need more allies to stand up and say that this is wrong, and it's not
We
acceptable.
also need our community to start standing up and saying, hey, this is wrong.
100%.
Like, we can't be afraid to be who we are.
The biggest thing that really bothers me too is the self-hate within our own community. That is in itself, again, also very appalling to me. We are a community that, thrives together. We build each other. You look back in the 80s, how gay men treated trans women or trans men, or like now the big thing is like, we have social media and we have social app dating. So the big thing is like no fats, no femmes, no Asians, no trans, no this, no that. Like honestly, people, like we are a society of acceptance and love, and we need to do that. We need to accept and love everybody. If being with somebody is not your bag, then that's fine, but you don't need to be a big penis about it.
Oh, you can say dick.
Oh, I can say dick? Okay. Dick. Richard.
Happened earlier, I'm going to introduce our mascot. This is Sir Owen Neonfeather. He is pansexual and fabulous as frick.
Ta-da!
He doesn't have pronouns because he's an owl. And he chooses not to have pronouns.
I'm so glad you cleared that up. So we were kind of talking about the importance of pride. We were talking about the importance of leaders, not only showing up, but actually engaging in conversations, especially if you're the community inviting you to the conversation. It would be really good to actually have the conversation.
Yes.
So what's some of the struggles that do we see that for pride organizations? I mean, I find that many of them, and I'm not picking on Pride Toronto or anybody specifically, really have a struggle in finding that balance between political activism, corporate sponsors, and participation in parties and all this other stuff. What do you think would kind of make that get to a point where it's a good balance?
Oh,
that's a loaded question.
That is a very loaded question. Personally, I just think it's all about activism in the community. So being able to go out and just talk to the community about different issues, not just LGBTQ issues, but just different issues that involve your city, municipality, township, wherever you live. Also being a visible voice. That is super important. So as a drag queen, I get to have a certain platform where people in my community look at me and look up to me, and they listen when I speak, and it's kind of nice. So you need more people who are more visible in the community, such as our political leaders who are out there. We just recently, in Barrie, where I'm from, we just recently elected a council member, an openly gay council member, and Keenan Owen, and he is out in the city pounding that pavement, talking to people. He was out yesterday doing the pride and trans flag raising at City Hall. So it's important to have people like that in our community, and if we could just continue that momentum and keep getting more people like that on board, this stress and division, between the masses and pride, I think will slowly decrease.
Yeah, because it seemed like pride kind of lost its way a little bit for a little while.
A little bit.
Because it became this big party thing, and we forgot about, wait a minute, there's still issues that we need to address. And it was sort of geared towards that 20 to 30 kind of age range, it seemed like, the six-pack abs and all that, tweakish.
My favorite for me is, my lovely husband, Matthew, hadn't experienced pride until a few years ago when I brought him down to one of his first prides.
Oh, that'd be like, bam!
Yeah, and so I prepared him. I was like, be prepared. There's going to be people who are tweaked out, people who are this, there's going to be this and this and this and this. And when I'm sitting there thinking about it now, and you're rambling off all these things to be aware of, and you're like, wait a minute, that has nothing to do with pride. And why am I pre-warning somebody about all this stuff when you should really be there celebrating why we are who we are? Pride is about celebrating our queerness. It's about celebrating why we get to stand together as a unified body, as an LGBTQ plus community, and support each other, because we need our voices heard. We demand respect and equality, and that is what the fight has been since day one. And that's kind of what we've gotten away from.
Wow. When you talk about relationships, you've been married for going on
6 years this year, together for 10, yes.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yes, it's been a lovely road, but I love you, baby.
On the topic of relationships, there are again, some people who are like either pansexual or bisexual or people who are non-binary.
My mom calls it the alphabet now.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, and then there are people who would consider themselves straight or however, or cisgendered, and they would want, and they end up dating these people, but they don't really get the community. Like for myself, my significant other identifies as straight, but still refers to me as the girlfriend or uses she, her pronouns. And so how do we tackle that sort of thing with people who aren't part of the community but are kind of dating those who are?
How about just how do you deal with that in a relationship?
Yeah.
It sounds, it seems like a good question.
Well,
to me.
first and foremost, I think you really need to be very set in your, like, listen, I respect you and I want to be in this relationship, but you also need to respect me. This is who I am. These are my pronouns. This is how I identify. And I would really respect. And it doesn't matter whether it's an intimate relationship, a relationship with friends, relationships with family. Family is the hardest one, especially when you are transitioning. If you just come out as trans, you've just come out as non-gender conforming. It's really hard for family members to like say, you know, them, they, or, you know, shklee or whatever it is that people are saying, you know what I mean? But, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of different terms for non-binary people. And I think it's very hard because, you know, people are born a certain, and I say a certain gender because that's physically what they're born, but mentally that is not who they are. And it's really hard for people to wrap their heads around that, especially the people who raised you. You know what I mean? I still have lots of trans friends whose parents call them by their given birth pronouns, and it's still very hard for them. But when it comes to relationships, I personally think anyway, a person should be with a person for their person and not their gender. I identify as gay. I identify as a cisgender male, but I am a person who loves people, and I have no problem if a trans man came up to me and was chatting with me and I clicked a connection with that person and him and I hit it off. I would have no problem dating a trans man. And people don't understand that sex and like gender and sexuality are two different things. People keep blurring those lines constantly. They keep sexualizing gender, and it's a little bit much, and they need to separate those two things completely in order to look at these people as a whole in a relationship.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, thanks.
Maybe you should do that for a living.
What, talk to people?
No, like maybe you could be a marriage counselor or something.
I actually want to be a sex counselor. I want to teach people how to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
Okay,
good.
so you tie them up this
Yeah,
way,
this way.
use this
Yeah.
paddle,
That's
spank
not
them
how you
here.
do that.
Yeah.
Rob, you not to put you on the spot and embarrass you, of course, because that'd be the last thing I would do. You're getting married.
Yep.
It actually really soon.
Oh, it is.
So how do you
Next weekend.
find like yeah, yeah, it is next weekend.
Yeah.
How do you find like is the communication like the key for you in that relationship to make it work?
Yeah, I mean, communication is the key pretty much for any relationship, right? So being open and being honest and having those conversations with your partner about everything. Like that's the-
Transparency.
Yeah.
Transparency is 100%.
So is that like really? I think that's when people start talking about open relationships. Like I think a lot of a big part of our community just does not get them. I mean, I did not really get them like years ago, but now I understand them. But
Because I had to explain it to him like 50
well, that
times.
helped. That did help, and there was diagrams and pictures and stuff, so it made it much easier.
Well, sorry, go ahead.
To put this into context, people, I'm in an open relationship and we have what's called a hall pass. We're committed to each other, but if there's ever an opportunity where we could hook up with someone cute, we either let our partner know in advance or tell our partner after it happened. It's just how that works.
And there's different types of like open relationships. There's being in an open relationship where you play separately and you do your own things. There's polyamorous relationships where people are like romantically involved with more than one person. You know what I mean? And that's another thing too that people forget. Sex and romance are two completely different things. So you need to be able to differentiate that with your partner, and you can't just haphazardly jump into that topic of conversation with your partner either. It's like, hey, we've been together for 15 years. By the way, I want to fuck other people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not really open and transparent.
Yeah, so it's something that you have to come into the relationship with, like, right off the hop. But again, like you said, communication, being open and honest with each other, complete transparency. I've never hidden anything from my partner. My husband, has known who I was from day one. He has all the passwords to my cell phone, my email, my Facebook, my everything.
And he probably never even looked at it.
No, never. But like, I don't have anything to hide. So why would I withhold that from my partner? And my husband and I just recently have opened up our other people, and it's fun. It keeps our relationship fresh and, on its toes a little bit. It just puts that little bit of pizzazz back into it. And again, just from my standpoint, I believe that human beings are not meant to be monogamous. We chose to be monogamous, and we still choose to be monogamous. I think monogamy is a wonderful thing. Do not get me wrong. I respect it. I love it. But I personally am not a monogamous person. So when I got into my relationship with my husband, I was like, listen, I'll give you 10 years. You get 10 years of monogamy from me. And like, after that, it is open game. And it's been 10 years. And, and if my parents are watching this, hi, Mom and Dad. I think it's actually brought us closer together as a couple because we are more passionate with each other. We communicate better with each other. We spend more time with each other. And then when we get to explore our sexuality with each other, I think it just heightens the whole overall relationship.
That's really interesting. Well, I have a question. So I think because I think most of us have done work around HIV and activism. So what about HIV positive people?
HIV positive people? So listen, my big thing is just being status positive. Okay? I don't care if you're gay, straight, whatever. Anything in between, know your status. When you know your status, you're protecting yourself, and you're also protecting the people that you are with. It is very important to always be forthcoming with your status with people, especially when you're in an intimate relationship with them. But on top of that, protecting yourself, so knowing what your precautions are. So I don't know of the viewers who are out there that know anything about PrEP, but PrEP is a new drug that just came out on the market. I think the medical name for it is Truvada. And it is like a birth control for HIV. So it basically helps you, it prevents you from contracting HIV. I think it's like 92 to 99% effective or whatever. But on top of that, using condoms as well is very, very, very important. But people who are living with HIV nowadays, most of them are undetectable. So like I don't know if you guys have heard about the U=U campaign,
Yep.
but U=U is a huge campaign that's going around right now, talking about and ending the stigma for people living with HIV. People, the biggest thing I hate when you're talking to somebody is like, are you clean?
Yeah, what is that?
What is that?
I shower.
I showered. Did you shower? Did you shower? Because I know I scrub myself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? After I get out of this, I'm probably not going to be very clean, but but you know what I mean? Like you need that stigma of being dirty and untouchable when people are HIV positive is again appalling. Nowadays, with the new treatments and treatment as prevention, people's viral loads are down way below 100 parts per million. So when you're way below that, you are undetectable. So when you're undetectable, that means you cannot transmit the virus through sexual intercourse. But again, protecting yourself using PrEP and using condoms
Well, you should still use condoms because, I mean, if you don't know your sexual partner, there's syphilis, gonorrhea. all
Well,
the
that's
other
exactly
stuff.
it. On top of that, that was my next thing. A lot of people, especially in the queer community, and I'm going to point fingers here, gay men, I'm talking to you, think that just because you're on PrEP means you can go bareback. And yes, it helps to prevent you from contracting HIV. There are 7 cases of people who are on PrEP who have contracted HIV. Now, in the grand scheme of things, It's a very minimal percentile in what it's protecting against. That being said, it doesn't prevent you from gonorrhea, syphilis, herpes, HPV, all that other stuff that comes with enjoying, being a sexual human being. Chlamydia, super gonorrhea, because that is actually a thing, and it is antibiotic resistant. Figure that one. I know. I do my research.
Who knew we were going to go down this road?
But it's super important just to be status positive, know what your HIV status is, know what your STI status is, and protect yourself and protect the people that you're with.
Yeah, and I've always said that, there's nothing, if I've ever met a positive person, I've usually asked two questions. Are you on meds?
Yeah.
And are you undetectable?
Yeah.
Because I'm educated.
Yeah.
And that's the key.
100%.
And I don't put that person down. because
Never.
they're with HIV.
Absolutely not. Just because they have HIV doesn't mean they're not a person who doesn't need respect and love and compassion, you know what I mean? And I know lots of people who are HIV positive, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't kick them out of bed for eating crackers.
I think it's
they're not.
important with the U equals U that gets more notice, right? Like, unless you're in the community, like out in the community, you don't know about U equals U.
Well, even within the community, they struggle in this area for some reason around HIV. The community is worse than, just the general community sometimes.
Not just the general community, the queer community, like our medical community. My husband just went to his doctor to discuss getting the workup done and blood work done so, we can go on PrEP and he can go on PrEP. She had no idea what it was. She had no idea, so she had to go and do research to figure out what it was, and then came back with an informed answer. But the fact that this is a medical professional working in the day and age that we are, and yes, I live in Barrie, so it's a little bit of a smaller city, but HIV is still a prevalent thing there, and I thought that this is something that's very well known within the medical community. So there needs to be more information.
Well, there's a lot of medical professionals that don't even know about U equals U. So
Yeah, that's very true.
Then there's some that actually share it with certain patients, but they won't share it with others. So it's because they pick and select because of whatever the lifestyle is.
Yeah.
They're making judgments on somebody. So, I mean, the key is, and Canada, rightfully so, after a lot of work of a lot of individuals and unions and stuff, signed on and endorsed the U equals U campaign, and it's the first country in the world to actually do that.
Bravo.
Yeah.
It's also another reason why we need a national pharmacare plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Access to testing and treatment.
Yes. Let me tell you. Sorry, continue on what you were going to say.
I was just going to say, last time I heard, the PrEP monthly cost is somewhere in Australia who has a single payer plan. It was about $10 a month, and here we are in Canada. It is not $10
It's
a month.
$237 a month if you do not have coverage.
Oh my God! Think about HIV meds run like $3,500,
Plus,
$5,000 a month.
Plus.
Yeah.
I remember the first person I ever knew when I was 23 years old.
So like yesterday.
It's like a million years ago. Was the first person I ever met that was HIV positive, and the meds that he was taking was costing him $2,400 a month, and he was on ODSP and Trillium and everything. So that helped to cover a majority of that. But if you have an income and you are not, eligible for ODSP or Trillium benefit, you are SOL. Like, you don't have benefits, that is coming out of your pocket.
Yeah, and people seem to forget that, it's covered by this or that, and it's like, no, you have to pay deductibles too. Like, if you get an income, and so many people living with HIV want to work.
Yes,
it's
they
just
do.
that they're put in a position that they can't because they can't afford the meds.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be without the meds because a lot of them don't want to be infecting anybody else. That's the reality.
Well,
of it.
I was having this conversation the other day about, you really don't hear about people having AIDS anymore, right? Because, we have these wonderful medications that keep the HIV virus so low that it cannot blossom into, and I don't want to say blossom because that's a beautiful word, but come out into this horrible virus that is AIDS. I follow a lot of blogs and the AIDS Advocacy Foundation and LGBTQ AIDS history and things like that, and you see how decimated that virus made people, the lesions and the illnesses and all that stuff. But it's because of the medications that we have now that prevent that AIDS virus from coming out. But just recently, there was a young man in the States, and he was unable to afford his medication, and he was hiding his HIV status from his parents, and he died at like 20 years old from AIDS-related illness. And this was in 2000 and I think it was 2015 or 2016.
It just shouldn't happen.
It shouldn't happen anymore.
You know, and it's funny because when you talk about AIDS activism, if it wasn't for the AIDS activism, you wouldn't have rapid drug approvals.
No.
You wouldn't have patient consultation.
Yeah.
It was those people that were laying in the streets, blocking traffic or chaining themselves to desks in a pharmacist's office or whatever, a pharmacare company, that made all these changes.
Yeah.
And people seem to forget and whitewash all that.
Yeah.
Terrible word, but
Yeah.
but that's what they do. They just seem to brush over all that it's forgotten.
Well, you know, the big AIDS quilt protest when it was laid out on the lawn at the White House.
That was an impactful thing.
That was the most heart-wrenching thing, I think, personally, because, you know, growing bodies because of this virus. And now that we've become more educated and we have more access to medications and things like that, you don't even think about it now. If somebody says, like you were saying, if somebody says to me, oh, I'm HIV positive, okay, are you on meds? And, you know, what's your viral load?
Yeah.
Easy peasy.
And then if you're not in that category,
Yeah.
well, we're going to make sure we use condoms.
Exactly,
It's like
exactly. You know, it's...
Not that I'm not going to use condoms. I mean, I will,
yes. Regardless, and that's another thing that I cannot stress enough. Like, even though I was saying that my husband and I, we play and we're open with other people, safety is the number one importance. You always have to protect yourself. Make sure you wear a condom
and
every
some
single
people
time.
don't know.
I know.
Which is unfortunate.
I know.
So I think this is a great topic that we're actually going to do some episodes around, and we're going to get some folks that actually live with HIV that are actually going to come on the show. We've actually talked to them already. And there's all kinds of anti-stigma campaigns happening during Pride organization, which is great. But I think we should just... I think one of the key things is to realize that this show is an opportunity of space, and that we're going to give people space to say what they need to say, whether they're from the trans community or a person of color or whatever that is. This is the place that they're going to be able to say what they want to say.
Absolutely.
And we're going to be the allies within our own community doing this. Yeah.
I think that's the plan, right?
Right, that's the plan. And it's not just like for this week.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of
It's
the
the
show.
whole year.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for people like us that are in the community to sometimes take those other people in our community who don't know better and just kind of give them a shake and be like, listen, you need to wake up and you need to look at everything as a whole. Because like I said before, a lot of the trials and tribulations that we're having are coming from within our own community. So we need to kind of educate or re-educate people in our own community, especially the younger generation.
And so for those of you that kind of come across our Facebook page and decide to make some comments, we welcome your comments.
We just don't care.
We just don't care. We do care. But if you're going to be negative and you're going to be like, I'm offended by your content,
Or
we just
bad
don't care.
5 o'clock shadow hangover look.
Yeah, so you can keep the hate stuff to yourselves because we're just going to ignore you. We're not going to ban you because we're going to let the other community members actually talk to you and try to straighten you out. So,
But at the same time, too, it also allows people to have a forum to open discussion. You know, you will bring on some negative comments, but then those negative comments can, bring on a conversation that takes that person's view into a different place. So if you're a little bit more open-minded and you don't understand, then ask questions. That's the most important thing. Try not to spew hate. Try not to spew miseducation and misinformation. If you don't know, just ask.
and don't share it without reading it, for God's sake.
And
Stop
don't
doing
use Facebook as news.
that. Yeah. God.
Don't fall for the clickbait.
Right? Like, how many people share something you look and you go, did you actually look at the resource that you just shared? Like, actually read it. That would be a nice change. Actually read it.
Yeah, we're just on our page. We're not going to pay attention to
And if you
trolls.
can't read, there's a little program that will actually read it to you. So just like, there's no excuse anymore. Anyway. So I want to thank you both for making sure that we brought you, well, poor Rob, we brought him from outside of the dark room to
Yeah,
bring him
that's
into the
my
light. But Justine, you are amazing as always.
Thank you.
And we're going to do more with you. as we move forward. We're very excited because you are one of our drag reporters.
Be gentle, okay?
No promises. Safe
I was
word
going to
is
say only
pineapple.
That is my safe word.
That's my safe word too.
Well,
That's a conversation for another time.
I don't have a safe word.
Oh,
It's make me
well
harder.
then.
We're not going to go down that road, but hopefully one episode we'll actually get into that kind of conversation because
Yes.
there's some folks that we can actually get
Yeah,
on the
that's
show.
that's a whole genre of our community that people really don't know a lot about or have their own thoughts on is the BDSM community, and I think it's not personally my fetish, and it's not something that I'm into, but I think it's a wonderful outlet, and
Yeah, but a fetish can be buying shoes.
yeah.
Yeah, so what people term as fetish is just kind
Sorry,
of...
sexual fetish.
Yeah.
Let's say sexual fetish.
Yeah. I think it'll be interesting to kind of get that kind of topic and have that kind of conversation.
Well, I think that's basically kind of the main platform for our show is to take people just outside of their comfort zone a little bit, make them feel a little uneasy, to kind of take in the information that they need to know to kind of process things for themselves.
You know, it's funny, actually, you say that I actually did a recent Living Well Expo, and I actually talked to seniors, and I got to talk to them about sex.
Yes.
And the best one was when, oh dear, what are you here doing? And we go, oh, we're talking about sex. And they go, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh my god. I'm interested.
Oh, we didn't do our outro. Oh,
It's all right.
we can do that later.
We can wait a minute. We're good. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to end it now anyway.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for watching.
No, we got to wait for the
Talk.
just wait for the mic.
What happened to the battery died?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, you guys are still mic'd up.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent. So we can do the outro.
All right, take 4.
Well, that was another fabulous episode of Str8 Talk. Yes, fabulous rainbows. Neon rainbows.
Very awkward. So we want to thank you for tuning in, and make sure you watch out for future episodes that will be coming soon. The fall is actually our target to actually release everything. So
Let's
on a
talk
regular-
about sex, baby. Let's
can-
talk about you and me.
I want to thank Rob and Justine for coming and making sure that people know who you are. And I know there's
They
some
came
other
many
drag.
times.
There's some other drag folks that we have as well, which we'll be catching up to over the weekend. So really excited about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And it's great. I really enjoyed the conversation, by the way. Doesn't always happen like that. Anyway, thanks a lot, and check back with us soon.